here on a case-by-case basis. However, for-profit organizations are not eligible to serve as the lead applicant or fiscal agent. Also, sneak peek for the upcoming Q&A this Friday, government entities are also eligible to be on this list and serve as lead applicant for WA 14, as long as they can fulfill the responsibilities outlined on page 3 of the RFA. So partnerships are a core component of Accelerator 14. This solicitation is designed to support cross-system collaboration, bringing together education, workforce, and industry partners to develop strong career pathways. At a minimum, every application must include at least one employer partner and at least one education partner from one of the eligible institutions listed on this slide. While only one education partner is required, applicants are encouraged to partner with as many of these institutions as appropriate for their proposed project, and applicants must document these partnerships by submitting partnership commitment letters with their applications, which we will dive into a little bit later on a later slide. And please note that priority consideration will be given to applications that include partnership commitments from multiple institutions in the required partners list in the list, multiple employers or an employer consortium, also partnerships that have one or more local workforce development boards or AJCCs included in the application. And we will also cover additional priority funding consideration for Accelerator 14 in more detail on a later slide. So let's talk about the two project types for Accelerator 14. We have planning and development and innovation impact. Both project types have a maximum award amount of $1.5 million and require applicants to provide a one-to-one match or leverage that is equal to their total funding request, which we will dive a little bit into later on in this presentation. And we'll take a closer look at each project type in the next slides. So let's begin with planning and development project type. Planning and development projects are intended to build and refine new career pathway models. Applicants will take a research and development approach by designing, testing, and strengthening their proposed service delivery model through collaboration with education, workforce development, and industry partners. By the end of the grant term, projects are expected to deliver an implementation-ready career pathway program along with a comprehensive training and education plan, a sustainability plan, and demonstrated progress towards establishing industry-recognized credentials. Next, we'll take a look at innovation impact. Innovation impact projects build on the planning and development project type by moving from planning into implementation. While applicants may continue planning and partnership development activities during the grant term, these projects must also provide direct services to participants and achieve measurable outcomes. By the end of the grant term, planned innovation impact projects are expected to complete all planning and development deliverables, including a comprehensive training and education plan, a sustainability plan, and progress toward industry-recognized credentials. In addition, applicants must document participant employment and education outcomes, including placements into quantum fusion or adjacent occupations. As a reminder, participants in innovation impact under the Innovation Impact project type do not need to be served at the beginning of the grant term, but they must be served at some point during the grant term. Now let's talk about those partnership commitment letters. So to document these required partnerships, applicants must submit partnership commitment letters from at least one employer partner and at least one required education partner. If the education partner is the lead applicant, they do not need to submit a partnership commitment. Applicants that submit partnership commitment letters for additional employers or required partners will receive priority consideration, so applicants are definitely encouraged to include as many relevant partners in their proposal as appropriate. Each letter must identify the proposed project or partnership, include an original or electronic signature from an authorized representative, and clearly describe the partner's roles and responsibilities in the project. Finally, it's important to note that applicants who do not submit partnership commitment letters may be subject to disqualification. So the employer attestation, this requirement only applies to innovation impact projects. Innovation impact applicants must submit an employer attestation from at least one employer partner identified in the proposal. The attestation serves as confirmation that the employer is actively engaged in the project and committed to hiring participants who successfully complete the proposed training. At a minimum, the attestation should describe the employer's hiring demand from the targeted occupation and confirm the employer's role in informing the proposed training plan. And I will pass it on over to Julissa to talk about Target Pops.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julissa Silva. I am also a grant development and selections analyst for the CWTB. And today we're going to go over target populations. Accelerator 14 is intended to expand access to workforce opportunities for individuals facing barriers to employment. Applicants who intend to serve participants during the grant term should apply as an innovation impact project and should clearly identify the population or populations they intend to serve and describe how their proposed project will address the unique needs of those participants. As shown on this slide, some target populations include English language learners, justice-involved individuals, veterans, out-of-school youth, people with disabilities, and other populations facing barriers to employment. Projects should also describe the outreach, recruitment, and supportive services that will help participants successfully complete training and transition into employment during the grant term. Next, I will pass it over to Kara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Meyer, and I am the supervisor of the grant agreement section here. I'm going to first talk about what we're considering priority funding considerations. So there are a number of required application elements that have been discussed, but we would like to give priority consideration to proposals that include one or more of the elements listed on this slide. These include strong education, industry, and workforce development system partnerships that support the proposed project, proposals that effectively demonstrate these collaborations and their role in achieving project outcomes may receive additional consideration during the review process. Additionally, proposals that serve participants will receive additional consideration. These projects would be considered an innovation impact project, and they will need to complete the participant plan tab in the application and meet all other innovation impact project requirements. While these elements are not required for eligibility, applicants are encouraged to incorporate them whenever they align with their proposed project. So for the application scoring rubric, applications will be evaluated across 5 scoring elements. The largest portion is the scope of work, which is basically the narrative, which accounts for 40% of the total score. This section, along with the associated exhibits, will be reviewed by a CWDB review panel. The remaining points are awarded based on serving participants, education partnerships, industry partnerships, and workforce development system partnerships. As we've discussed throughout today's webinar, these partnerships play an important role in strengthening an application. Following the technical review, application review, and scoring process, the CWDB may elect to conduct virtual interviews with selected applicants. And I think I'm going over to Mike now. Nope, Lisa.
Right, so now we're going to dive into the how to apply, and we'll be conducting an application demo for you guys. So bear with me. I just want to confirm everybody can see the Cal eGrants screen. Yes, no, maybe so. Okay. So you, of course, would have to log in to your California eGrants Now, if you do need assistance as far as creating an application or creating a profile, you are more than welcome to email solicitations at cwdb.ca.gov, and we can definitely provide you with that walkthrough as well. But today we're going to just go over the application and how to access it. So first, to begin, we're going to start with, as soon as you log in, you're going to see this screen here, and you're going to jump over to funding opportunities. Once you see and you click the Funding Opportunities tab, I highly recommend that you go to this drop down here and you click CWDB Funding Opportunities, because you may not see it off the top when you first click there. The awesome part about Workforce Accelerator Fund 14 is it's going to be the last one on the list, so it will be easy to find. And you're just going to go ahead and click on that funding opportunity title. Then you're going to see an introduction page here, which is going to go over just, again, purpose, eligibility, and any application support. You can find our solicitations email here as well. And you can go ahead and click on that and send us an email with any questions you may have after this webinar. Once you do that, you're going to click on the Apply button here, and it will always be on the right-hand side of the screen. At this point, this is where you're going to make the determination of which project type your organization will be applying for. Now, for the sake of demonstrating, I will be going over an innovation impact project, but just to show you what the screen will show, you're going to click Next once you choose your application type, and this screen is going to appear here. Now, as you see all these asterisks, those are required fields that must be completed before moving forward. And there are safety mechanisms within the programming. So if you aren't putting in the in-kind match that is needed, or the requested amount within the parameters that are eligible, it will not allow you to move forward. So just be mindful of what you're entering. And then again, it will ask you target industry, target occupation. You're going to choose the counties that you're choosing to serve. Now I'm just choosing generalized options here. Target population, you're going to enter your address. Points of contact, I highly recommend that you be mindful of who you're adding here, just because those are the points of contact that we will be reaching out to. So if you were to submit a generalized email and maybe that inbox is not checked constantly, I would definitely put an email or a point of contact that you know that they're going to be available for when we maybe need to reach out for modifications or technical support or what have you. Also, you're going at the very bottom, you're going to input your authorized representative. So again, just being mindful of who you're putting there and making sure that they are authorized to sign off on contracts and so on. So I'm going to click cancel here, and we're going to dive into the application. So like I mentioned before, we're going to demonstrate for an innovation impact project. First and foremost, once you've clicked save and you've gone and you've moved forward to this introduction page here, or your cover page, if you will, the most important thing, and I can't say this enough, we have to click agree. If we do not click agree here and we're not making this acknowledgement, unfortunately, as you will see here, none of the exhibits will appear for you. So that acknowledgement needs to be one of the first things you do after completing the cover page. So we're going to go ahead and click agree here. And again, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to proceed? I hope so. So we're going to go ahead and proceed here. Oh, maybe. There we go. So as I mentioned before, you're going to fill in this required information, requested amount, in kind, and so on. One of the sections that did not appear in the first cover page before we filled it out was the number of participants. So because, as Monique was mentioning earlier, innovation impact projects are required to serve participants, and so that question will appear here. And a number of participants and number of new job placements will be asked, and that is a section that has to be filled. Once you've filled out your cover page, you can go ahead and move on to the narrative exhibit. And that's where your scope of work will appear. There's going to be 2 narrative responses that are required for you to complete. The first is a summary of your proposed project. This response is required, but it's not scored. This is an unscored response. If awarded, this response may be used for CWDB's award announcement, press release, or other publications that are public-facing communications. So we just ask that you keep this response within the 3,000 character limit. And that does include punctuation and spaces. So be mindful of that as well. Also, one thing to note is if you do copy and paste from maybe a Word document, please be very mindful of that because sometimes certain codes will be pasted over and it will not let you move forward. So just be aware of that process. Like if you have any bullet points or asterisks, sometimes those things just don't communicate over as we would like. Then we're going to move on to the scope of work question, which is going to be the, I guess, meat and potatoes of the narrative responses. And so in this response, you're going to describe your project in more depth and detail. It should show how your project aligns with the goals of Accelerator 14 program, clearly identify the challenge or opportunity the project will seek to address, and the proposed approach to address any of these challenges and opportunities that you're detailing here. There is a character limit of 15,000. Again, that does include spaces and punctuations. And I'm going to say this several times, so I'm sorry if I say it on repeat, but do not forget to push save. If you don't push save and you move on to another exhibit, it will not save the hard work that you've just put in. So please, 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 my rule of thumb is just click save anytime you know that you're going to switch over, or even if you're just going to get up and walk away and take a break from your application. Then you can move over to the deliverables. And as Monique kind of mentioned over the different deliverables that are required for both project types, this is where you will add them in here. Now you're going to only see these 2 boxes. However, go ahead and as you see, you're going to see a button that says add, and you can add as many deliverable spaces here for you to fill in. There is a character limit for each box of 500. Again, that also includes punctuation and spaces, so be mindful of that. And you will identify your project's outcome and deliverables to be accomplished within the grant funding up until the grant term. So these will be identified here, and you will answer the corresponding questions. Again, don't forget to click save. Now we're going to go into the expend plan. Now, the expend plan here, keep in mind that for all budget exhibits, which will be expend plan, budget narrative, supplemental budget, and budget summary, they all correspond with one another. So sometimes we definitely receive emails about errors that you receive because it's not allowing you to move forward due to something not matching from one plan to the other. So be very mindful that if you submitted, for example, you put here that your accumulative expenditure will be, let's say, $100, and then you went to your budget narrative, and when you're describing those expenses, they do not equal $100, it will give you an error message. So making sure that we're just being even across the board is going to save whomever is filling out the application lots of headache and lots of error message returns. So again, they correlate with one another. Each exhibit does have a description of what is expected to be filled out for that correlating exhibit. For the expend plan, it will be on a quarterly basis. And then we jump over to budget narrative, where you can go over in depth what each of those expenses will look like, and then describing them within the description boxes here. Again, there are character limits, so those will include, it's usually about 500 character limit, and they include spaces and punctuations. And as I said before, click the save button. You are able to add certain exhibits or lines, detailed lines here. So we have like job title and staff responsibility. You can add that here. Staff travel, again, be descriptive, and then putting the correlating amount that is expected. We'll move over to supplemental budgets. And again, there will be a description here at the top of what it would go, what expenses need to be described within this exhibit, and then the correlating amounts as well. We'll go over to budget summary. Again, just kind of a summary of everything that's going to be requested. All of this, as well as you can see here at the bottom, there are links, and all of these links you are able to click, and they provide a more descriptive detail of what can be included within those exhibits, allowable costs, not unallowable costs, and so on. Then we'll move over to the work plan. So the work plan is a tool to help projects plan for various components and identify milestones leading to the achievement of outcomes and deliverables. So one thing to also keep in mind as you're filling out your application is the CWDB, as they are reviewing your applications, they are looking that your work plan does match and associate with the goals of your deliverables and outcomes, and that those also correlate with the details of your proposed project that you'll be providing descriptively within the narrative responses. Again, keep in mind, save here, always click save. These grant activities are to be completed by December 31st, 2028. So also keep that in mind when filling out your work plan. Then we'll jump over to the participant plan. Like as Kara mentioned earlier, the participant plan will only be filled out by innovation impact projects. For those who are applying as a planning and development for project type, you will see the participant plan exhibit or tab. However, there will be a message up at the top that will say that you do not need to fill it out. So just be mindful of that. So the only organizations that will see this exhibit here will be innovation impact applicants. Again, you're going to go through the participant plan, and it asks you on a quarterly basis, as far as, like we mentioned before, program enrollments, and training completions, post-exit outcomes. And then there are, make sure not to miss the questions here below. So how frequently will new cohorts launch? CWDB, apologies, prioritizes participant outcomes in the following categories, and those responses will go here: employment, occupation, non-training related, career advancements, and so on and so forth. These can also be found in the RFA as far as any deliverables and outcomes that are expected for these specific exhibits. Again, please don't forget to click the Save button. We're going to move over to the partner role and responsibility. As Monique was going over the different required partners for each program project type, we ask that you provide those roles here in be more descriptive of what each of those employer partners will be and what roles they're going to be taking. So you can add them by clicking the Add button here. You're going to put your partner name, again, their role and responsibility, and any leverage funding that they will be providing. And then you will choose whether that will be a cash or in-kind leverage. Okay. Now, there are the required partners, as Monique was saying earlier, so those are already here. However, if you have additional partners, for example, you have another government partner or AJCC that you want to add here, you can add it here at the bottom. You are not limited to the amounts that you can add. As you can see here, we can click this button all day and you will have a plethora of line items to add in there. And again, don't forget to click the Save button. We're going to move over to the Upload Documents tab. Here we go. So this is where, again, like Monique was mentioning, some of the commitment letters that are required for each project type. This is where you will be uploading said commitment letters. You're going to click New here. And as you can see, you're going to provide it a document name, which could be, again, commitment letter from whichever organization or partnership that you are choosing to upload at that time. Then you're going to click partner type, or I'm sorry, document format type. This is really, it's not a required field, but you can choose all types if that's the safest for you. and then other comments or descriptions that you would like to provide. You don't have to be super descriptive in this area. We just ask that you identify exactly the document that you're providing. So if it's a commitment letter from an AJCC, you can say commitment letter from AJCC in San Jose, or if it is a university, you can put a public university commitment letter and what have you. And you would then click save. Once you've clicked save, you can save here. Now we have the notes. There is a notes option here. It is not a required exhibit, but you are more than welcome to write notes, but it is not a required exhibit and it is not a part of our review process. Once you've completed all your exhibits that you see here, you can choose to submit. If you want to take a step away and maybe share this and provide, I am a pen to paper, so I like to print, you also have that option. You can print here. It may or may not give you that option today. Apologies. This is a test website, so it may not show up, but you do have an option to choose print view, and that will print all of the information that you've already inputted into each exhibit, and you can save it for future reference. Or you can click submit and it will also be there for you to reference. But once you've submitted, you will not be able to make any changes to the application. Again, applications are due August 27th at 5 p.m. We also ask that if you do require technical support with your application, that you reach out at least 2 business days before the application is due, because we cannot promise that we're able to make any accommodations to the application or provide you the technical support that you need, depending on what it is. If it's a system error, then we may not be able to work with our developers to get that resolved for you. So that we do ask that you reach out to us at least, again, 48 hours or 22 business days before the application is due, so that we can assist you with that. So please be mindful and try to fill these out within a reasonable time. You are able to, like I said, walk away and come back at any moment. As you can see here, these tabs are also available to you. The home, funding opportunities, applications, grants, and participant data are available to you on your CEG account or your Cali Grants account. So you can, once you've saved everything, essentially go back to applications here. Your CEG account will appear there, or your Accelerator 14 application will appear here, and you'll be able to click and go through. And again, as long as you have not submitted the application, you are able to make changes and edits to the application. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint, and I will hand it over to Mike.
Thanks, Lisa. So we do want to just recap the match leverage requirement, and just a note to the folks who have asked questions in the chat, we will cover those questions after we finish up with the slide deck here. So on the match leverage requirement, both planning and development and innovation impact projects are required to propose either match and or leverage of external funding at a 1-to-1 rate. So if you're requesting a $500,000 grant award from the CWDB, you would need to propose an equal $500,000 in match and or leverage funding. In terms of leverage, those resources can come from a variety of sources, including but not limited to employers, industry associations, any number of partners that are associated with your proposed project. Match refers to a cash match or contribution of external funds specifically for grant activities. And we do want to note that WIOA formula dollars cannot be used as matching funds. This requirement and more content around these definitions is included in the RFA. So encourage folks who have questions about this requirement to refer to page 19 in the RFA. And to a question in the chat for folks who do have partners who are contributing leverage or match. And so Lisa just showed the partner roles and responsibilities exhibit is where that would be documented. Moving to timeline. Yep, application opened last Wednesday. This Friday, we will post our first weekly Q&A, and we'll discuss the Q&A a little bit more in a second. We will be hosting another live Zoom webinar similar to this one. We call those virtual office hours. That's not a formal presentation. That's more for folks who either have outstanding questions about the solicitation itself, need a little bit of guidance on the Cal eGrants application. We will be available to answer your questions on August 12th at 10:30. There's a registration link in the chat for that event. Our final Q&A posting will be August 21st. Applications are due on the 27th of August at 5 p.m. That 5 p.m. is a hard deadline. The application does close after 5 p.m., so please be mindful of that. And we anticipate awarded grantees to start program on or around January 1st, with the grant term ending March 31st, 2029. And just a few resources for folks. Strongly encourage everyone to review the complete Accelerator 14 RFA. This webinar today is sort of an overview of the RFA, but the RFA contains much more detailed guidance on every element of the grant program. We did not cover the administrative requirements for awarded grantees today. Section 6 of the RFA goes into a lot of detail about those administrative requirements, so strongly encourage folks to familiarize themselves with those. We will continue to post updated information on the Accelerator 14 webpage. That's also linked in the chat. That's where the weekly Q&A document will be posted. The Q&A document, that serves essentially as a supplement to the RFA. If folks identify any policy clarifications that we at the CWDB want to clarify, we will include those in a weekly Q&A document that will be posted to the Accelerator 14 webpage. One of the key resources is in that sub-bullet there, solicitations at cwdb.ca.gov. Our whole team here is on standby to respond to your questions, whether they be policy clarifications in the RFA or you're having trouble with your Cal eGrants account. Anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us. We have the whole team monitoring that inbox, and we are here to help if you run into any issues. All right, with that, we will conclude the webinar portion of today's call. We do have a good amount of time to answer questions. We do have a queue of questions in the chat I'd like to get to. Folks can also feel free to use the hand raise function in Zoom if they want to come on the mic and ask a question, or continue to use the chat for Q&A. Kristen, do you have a queue? I see we have a pretty fair amount here.
Yes, give me just a second.
And I can help you out here. I'll scroll
I'm
up.
going to start reading off the topic.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll just touch on Ginny's question around the partnership commitment letters and leverage. So the question is, do partnership commitment letters need to disclose estimated leverage amount? Did respond to that one in the chat. So partnership commitment letters do not need to reference leverage. As mentioned on the slides today, the partner roles and responsibilities exhibit is where partner match leverage would be documented. So not a requirement that that's included in the commitment or attestation letters. Maria asks, for organizations that are focused on K through 12, what would employer attestations look like in that case? We do not have like a distinction in that requirement depending on who the lead applicant organization is. The employer attestation requirements would look the same for any type of lead applicant. And Barbara asks a similar question. The employer attestation in which the employer partner commits to hire program participants seems like a difficult commitment to get from employers. For previous projects, we have been able to get employers to commit to interviewing program participants, and that was a difficult commitment to obtain. Would CWDB consider making this change or to make the commitment optional? So my guidance in those scenarios, if you foresee your project as unable to secure employer attestations, which do come with that commitment to hiring, um, strongly recommend those applicants consider the planning and development track. The employer attestation requirement only applies to the innovation impact project type. And it is a requirement of the innovation impact project type to serve participants. Planning and development projects are not required to serve participants and would still need to require a commitment letter from an employer to participate in the planning and development process. But the employer commitment letter for planning and development projects does not come with the requirement of placing trained participants by the conclusion of the grant term.
I'll
You
go ahead
want
and
me?
read the next question. Arash said, is it possible to add more than one county we serve?
I think that's a reference to the cover page of the application. And I do believe that field does allow for,
Multiple counties. Yeah.
yeah.
Will we be able to, Lauren said, will we be able to receive a replay? And then like Mike said, yes, this will be posted on the YouTube and on the website. Cindy. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll take Cindy's question, Lisa. Cindy asks, since this project may not be suited for some areas, when do you expect another round of accelerator to be released? Currently, we do not have a planned accelerator 15. This accelerator 14 is the fiscal year 26-27 version of accelerator. If and when we do announce a new round of accelerator, we will post that to the grant information page on our website.
And then Chris said, how strictly must training map to the named trades, chirogenic technician, precision machinery, electromagnetic technician versus adjacent software control system and integrated roles? And Mike said that we will cover this question in the Q&A after the presentation, but the occupations listed in the RFA are given as examples. That is far from the exhaustive list of allowable occupations, roles in
Yeah,
software
Lisa,
control system. Yeah, go
I'll
ahead
jump
if you
in.
want to take
I'll
that
jump
over.
in on that one. So we did want to give just kind of guideposts for what an adjacent occupation in the quantum and or fusion supply chain looks like. We understand that the like occupational classification system has not quite caught up to the quantum and fusion sectors yet. There is a whole range of occupations within those supply chains. We would encourage applicants to detail their target occupations in their scope of work response. But like I said in my response, the examples given in the RFA are just that. They're examples, and any number of occupations that support the quantum and fusion sectors and supply chains will be considered.
And then Dwayne said, can a Canadian HQ'd company participate as a partner?
Yeah, for that one, yes. That particularly as a partner, lead applicants must have some presence in the state of California. Partner organizations do not have the same requirement. Um, I'd be, I would encourage applicants to use the partner roles and responsibilities and just describe the role of that partner that's located in Canada and how they will eventually inform a California-based training program.
And Samarth said, are you ideally looking for some crossover between quantum and fusion?
I would not say we are ideally looking for that. If that type of project were to exist, that would certainly be, it would warrant consideration. However, we are framing this as quantum or fusion as target sectors. However, that wouldn't preclude a project that included elements of both.
And Rebecca asked, is the focus meant to be only on quantum or fusion industries? Can it be open to precision manufacturing?
So we ultimately want the training pathways that are funded through this grant program to support the quantum and or fusion sectors. Um, precision manufacturing does have an intersection with the skill needs of those sectors. But I would just advise any project focused on an occupation like that to have to really articulate how the training pathway supports either the quantum or fusion sectors. And we also will be looking at the employer partners, those attestation or commitment letters, and what type of employers those are and how closely connected they are to the emerging quantum or fusion industries.
We'll move on to Milton's question. Most CSU universities require funding applications to be submitted through Foundation, which also manages the expenditures and enforces various compliances. How does this square with this funding call?
Yeah, Milton, if that's the standard practice in the CSU system, that's certainly allowable for foundations to serve as a lead applicant rather than the CSU itself. Um, if there's any more context you'd like us to add, feel free to jump off mute, but I'll just leave it at that. Foundations are certainly an allowable lead applicant.
And Scott, we do appreciate the check of the link. We will definitely work on getting that fixed. I'm going to move to Chris's question. Would a project scoped entirely around software and systems integration side of quantum or fusion rather than hardware trades be considered well aligned, or is CWDB primarily looking for a hands-on technical training?
I won't say that we're primarily looking for hands-on technical training. There does seem to be a lot of alignment with the sort of K through 12 CTE community college system and the sort of trades-oriented technical training. However, this funding opportunity is not limited to those occupations, and we would certainly consider applications based around software and systems integration.
Maria is asking a follow-up question to clarify how would we get an employer to attest to hiring students who are not yet out of high school? Is internship or pre-apprenticeship adequate, or is that a disqualifier? Would we only be able to apply for planning track and not the innovation track?
I don't necessarily want to advise folks on the specifics of an individual proposal. I will just go back to my previous reply that without a firm employer attestation to hire participants, a planning and development track is probably the more appropriate lane for an application. But internship and pre-apprenticeship generally not considered employment.
And then Don is asking about the GoBiz office. They released their Quantum Fast Challenge funding opportunity. Is there any crossover?
Yeah, Don, thanks for that question. That was just announced today. Accelerator 14, this grant program was referenced in that announcement. We certainly do we're moving in the same direction alongside GoBiz. We're both looking to build on the California Jobs First blueprint. There's no like direct tie between our like scoring criteria and proposals that come through the GoBiz funding opportunity. But we have intentionally tried to align around the quantum sector and supporting the growth of jobs in quantum.
And then there is a question from Milton. Is overhead or F&A requests allowed for CSU? If so, at what rate?
Uh,
I
Can
don't know
you
what
clarify?
F&A. Yeah.
Yes, can you clarify what FNA
Yeah.
stands for, Milton? You can either come off mute or put it in the chat.
Yeah, it's usually it's overhead. It's usually facilities or and administrative cost
Okay.
that it's involved since for keeping up the facility. For federal rates for SDSU are somewhere between 50 and 52%.
Okay. So we do have indirect costs and administrative costs. Our administrative cost rate is a 15% cap. For indirect costs, if you do have what's the word I'm looking for?
Negotiated indirect
Thank
costs.
you.
Yeah.
You can use that, but we are really looking at projects that, are meaningfully using funds. But also if the CSU is not a lead applicant and would be a match leverage, that might look a little different as well. I don't know if that makes total sense. Jan, Maisha, feel free to jump in. We do have guidance in the RFA that I would look closely at for that.
Yeah, that's my sentiment too, Kara. Section 6 of the RFA administrative requirements does include all of our guidelines around administrative and indirect costs. Also happy to drill down on some of that stuff in our Q&A document if the RFA does not answer your question.
And just to clarify, these are federal dollars. They are discretionary, but we still have limits that we can do with federal money. So some of those limits are set forth within WIOA guidelines.
Jenna asks how many awards are expected in each category.